After the Summer Institute, I tried to become a much more thoughtful, a much more mindful, and a vulnerable teacher. I remained, or I became a whole lot more cognizant of my students' needs, of the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. For example, I was able to identify more clearly when a student was struggling and why exactly, rather than try to puzzle it out on my own in a vacuum.
There were a number of changes that I picked up at the Summer Institute that I tried to put into practice when I got back to my school. And some of them were small changes, things like implementing wait time or paying attention to the threshold. Others were a little bit more structural, where I tried to add discussions to class more often, and then some were even bigger still. For example, trying to put a critical friends group together when I got back to PACE.
The most effective application of what I learned at the Kling2 Summer Institute had to do with adequate assessment and involving my students in their very own learning. Getting feedback from them about what was working for them in the classroom, what sorts of assessments worked for them, so on and so forth. It was much easier for me to think ahead in order to plan backwards for a much more effective curriculum.
So what went well and what didn't go so well? What comes to mind is when I first got back to my school after the summer and after having an incredible experience, I went around with my team at the first meeting that we had, and I asked everybody what they were doing different this year, what they had in store in terms of changes for the upcoming year. And I remember when I asked the question that I got nothing but crickets, basically. Nobody said a word, and they looked at one another, and they were all approaching change as basically sort of a dirty word in that they focused on the pain that change oftentimes brings out. And I guess after the Summer Institute, I had redefined my definition of change and sort of saw the value in growth that can come from change.
In terms of my wider community, I tried to change, I guess, my school more, again, from a personal perspective, which was to allow myself to be more vulnerable and ask for help more actively and connect with teachers about the elements of my teaching that were problematic to me, and to solicit feedback from them in as humble a way as possible. You know, the only way for me to become a better teacher is to use my best resource, and that's my colleagues as well as my students, of course.
In terms of my wider community, I think that one of the biggest things that I took away from the Summer Institute was the importance of intentionality and growth mindset. And I know those are two changes that are a little bit harder to quantify, but I found that just engaging colleagues that I hadn't talked to, or visiting classrooms that I hadn't been in, or talking to students that I didn't coach or didn't teach, with the idea from the Summer Institute that these experiences can be really enriching. I think that was probably the biggest change and the most positive change that came out of the Institute that I tried to put into practice in my own school. What I would do differently is I would try to remember. It was easy for me to remember going back that year that change was going to be difficult, and that there were a number of people that didn't have the same experience that I had. But when it became really difficult, it was the following year and the year after. And so the thing I think I would try to do differently is just stay conscious of the idea that it's a gradual process, and that it's difficult, and it's okay that it's difficult, but remember that things aren't necessarily going to get easier right away, and they may take a little time.